Chapter 1. The Anniversary Toast That Shattered Everything. Can you believe he still thinks they're his kids? The ballroom shimmered in soft golds and creams, warm light glinting off crystal chandeliers and polished silver. String music hummed from the quartet in the corner, underscoring the gentle hum of laughter, clinking glasses, and the low murmur of conversation. A three-tiered anniversary cake stood tall near the head table, adorned with white roses and a golden 21 perched on top. Mark Willis stood near the center of the room, ties slightly loosened, jacket draped neatly over a chair. His smile was easy, natural. For once, everything seemed right. He scanned the room, heart swelling with pride. His wife, Olivia, radiant in a sapphire dress that hugged her curves, was chatting with their oldest daughter, Sophie, near the open bar. Grace and Caleb laughed at something the DJ said by the dance floor. Family, friends, colleagues, all there to celebrate them. 21 years, 2 decades, and change of love, loyalty, building a life brick by brick. Mark had started from nothing. The overtime hours, skipped vacations, sleepless nights, all worth it, standing in this moment. He raised his glass to no one in particular, smiling to himself. Here's to making it, he whispered. Daniel Reed, his best friend since college, clapped him on the back. Hell of a party, brother, he grinned. You always go big. Mark chuckled. Only for one woman. Daniel raised a brow. Lucky Olivia. That was Daniel, smooth, a little too slick sometimes, but always there. Mark had trusted him with everything, investment advice, family barbecues, even being godfather to Caleb. They were brothers in all but blood. A slow song began to play, and the DJ's voice crackled through the mic. All right, folks, if you're here for love, this one's for the anniversary couple, Mark and Olivia. Let's get our stars back on the dance floor. Cheers erupted as Mark reached out his hand and found Olivia's already there. Her smile was poised, almost too practiced, but he chalked it up to the champagne. They stepped into the center as the music enveloped them, soft, nostalgic, the same song from their wedding. He pulled her close. You look incredible, he murmured. She nodded with a distracted smile. Thank you. You okay? He asked. I'm fine, she said too quickly. Just a lot of people. He frowned for a second, but the warmth of the room dulled his concern. They swayed in rhythm. People clapped, some took videos, others wiped away tears. The perfect couple, the perfect life. But behind the mask of celebration, something small and sharp began to twist in his gut. After the dance, Olivia peeled away, excusing herself to get more champagne. Mark stayed back, shaking hands and fielding congratulations. A few moments later, he noticed her near the far corner, her back to him, speaking with Daniel. They were laughing. Too close. Mark felt it before he understood it. He began walking toward them. Slowly, casually. Olivia leaned in toward Daniel, her lips brushing his cheek. Daniel smirked. Mark's steps faltered. Then he heard it. Can you believe he still thinks they're his kids? Olivia whispered, a mocking lilt in her voice. He's practically raised your family for you. Daniel chuckled lowly. And with all the money he's put into their private schools and trips, we couldn't have done it better ourselves. Mark stopped cold, heart slamming against his ribs. His hands went numb. Olivia turned slightly, and Sophie walked up beside her. The 20-year-old, confident and cocky, flicked her hair and laughed. Yeah, Uncle Daniel is way more fun than our loser dad, anyway. Mark couldn't breathe, couldn't blink. He stood frozen among the moving bodies, the laughter, the clinking glasses. The air turned to static around him. His ears rang. The polished floor beneath him seemed to ripple like water, unsteady and unreal. His wife, his best friend, his daughter, mocking him, ridiculing everything he'd ever built, everything he was. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theatrical. It was a performance they had perfected right under his nose. How long? How long? The dance, the kisses, the late-night talks, the weekends Olivia said she needed space. The way Daniel always volunteered to help when Mark traveled for work. Was everything a lie? He remembered Caleb, as a toddler, sitting in Daniel's lap while Olivia giggled and said, "He's obsessed with you." He remembered how Grace once slipped and called Daniel Dad at school play. It all came flooding back, like puzzle pieces snapping together with brutal clarity. Mark's mouth was dry. He was trembling, but not from weakness. Not anymore. He stepped backward, one slow movement at a time, weaving through the guests. Their faces blurred. Some tried to talk to him, but he didn't hear them. He walked past the cake, past the gifts, past the slideshow looping with family photos, his wedding, first baby, Disney trip, graduation days. Lies. He picked up a glass of champagne from a tray and knocked it back in one gulp. Then another. The burn didn't touch the numbness setting in. He looked at Olivia and Daniel again, still laughing, whispering, the kind of ease and closeness only time could create. Years, maybe decades. He watched his daughter smirk. His stomach twisted, and then something inside him snapped, quietly, cleanly. Mark set the glass down, straightened his shirt, walked to the DJ booth, calm as a man walking to the gallows. He tapped the mic. The music stopped. All eyes turned. Even Olivia's smile froze. Mark's voice, low and controlled, cut through the air. Thank you all for coming. We're done here. A pause. Confusion. Whispers. I'm canceling the rest of the party, he continued. Everyone, please go home. Gasps. Murmurs. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Mark looked at Olivia. Just her. I'll be in touch, he said, flat and final. Then he walked away. Out the ballroom. Out the lie. Out of the life he thought was his. He didn't look back. Chapter 2. Before the fall, the good years, or so he thought. If you'd asked Mark Willis 5 years ago what he was most proud of in his life, he'd have pointed, without hesitation, to the 2-story colonial-style house at the end of Autumn Creek Lane. Not because it was fancy. No, it wasn't that. The paint was chipped in spots, the fence needed replacing, and the kitchen appliances groaned like elderly war veterans. But it had character. It had love. He'd poured his blood, sweat, and credit score into that house. And more than that, it had them. Olivia, Sophie, Grace, Caleb, his family, his reason for waking up early and working late. The only thing that ever really mattered. Mark had always believed that men were meant to carry the weight. Bills, responsibilities, burdens, the invisible things that kept a family standing upright. He'd never questioned it. He took pride in it. When Olivia wanted to be a stay-at-home mom for the kids' early years, he said yes, without hesitation. When Sophie needed braces and ballet lessons in the same year, he picked up a second freelance contract to cover the difference. When Olivia's mother fell sick and she needed to fly out to Oregon every month, he made it work. He made everything work. Mark, you're too good to me, Olivia would whisper after the kids went to bed, curling into his chest. Nah, he'd always say with a grin. You just got lucky. But truthfully, he was the one who felt lucky. She was beautiful in an effortless way, soft brown eyes, warm skin, the kind of laugh that made you feel like you were in on the joke, even if you weren't. And when she looked at him back then, it felt like home. They'd met in college. She was majoring in English Lit, always buried in some Austen novel, and he was a business major who barely scraped by on coffee and spreadsheets. He fell hard fast. By the time he graduated, he had a ring in his pocket and a 10-year plan in his head. They married at 24, bought their first home at 27. By 30, they had Sophie and a Labrador named Max. By 35, they had 3 kids, 2 car payments, and a mortgage that made his chest tighten every time the bank statement hit the mailbox. But he never complained. Not once. Because family was everything. And Olivia? She was the soul of it. Daniel had been there for most of it. From the bachelor party to the baby showers, to Caleb's 4th birthday party when the clown canceled and Daniel showed up in face paint, half drunk, but fully committed to making the kids laugh. They'd met back in college too. Same dorm, same poker nights, same late-night benders. Mark trusted him like a brother. No, more than a brother. Daniel had been his best man, godfather to Grace, the emergency contact when Olivia couldn't reach him. Uncle Daniel, the fun one. The guy who taught Sophie how to drive and smuggled Caleb his first sip of beer. He was a guy who always made Olivia laugh when Mark was too tired. And that, well, that used to make Mark feel grateful. Used to. Mark still remembered the first time something felt off. He couldn't even put a name to it, just a tug in the gut. Olivia had just returned from one of her girls' weekends, a tradition she and a few neighborhood wives kept up religiously. That weekend, she came back tanned, glowing. Happy. Too happy. Mark had kissed her on the cheek and asked how the trip was. "Oh, same old," she'd said, waving a hand. "We drank, gossiped, bitched about our husbands. You know the drill." He laughed, but it lingered, a strange tension under her smile. Later that night, while folding laundry, she was texting someone. Her face glowed from the screen. Mark peeked. "Daniel Reed, don't forget that thing on Thursday." Same time, he asked casually, "Daniel's texting you late tonight?" She barely looked up. "Yeah, he's helping me with Caleb's science project." "Mark, it's not weird. He's like family." Family. That word. He told himself it was nothing. That he was tired, overthinking. That Daniel was just being helpful. After all, Daniel was great with the kids. Too great sometimes. Sophie always called him Uncle D. When Mark said no to something, like an expensive concert or an overnight trip, Daniel would swoop in like a hero. "Come on, let the girl live a little," he'd joke, ruffling Mark's hair like he was the out-of-touch dad on a sitcom. Everyone would laugh. Mark did too, but it grated. And there was the time he caught Grace scrolling through Instagram, giggling at a meme Daniel sent her. He didn't even know they texted like that. "Uncle Daniel's so funny," she said. "Yeah," Mark said flatly. "He's a riot." Things piled up. Little things. Olivia once came back from a book club, night smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his. She said it was one of the girls' husbands, that they'd hugged goodbye. He wanted to believe her, and he did, back then. Another time, Daniel showed up at their house when Mark was still at work. He had a six-pack and Olivia was still in a robe. "Just dropped by to help her with the TV," Daniel explained. She said it was glitching. "Glitching?" Mark had asked, eyes narrowing. "Yeah," Olivia had said, adjusting her robe. "You know how these smart remotes are." Mark nodded slowly. He pushed it down, because if he started questioning everything, where would it end? The kids favored Daniel, sure. But Mark figured that's what happened when you were the strict parent. He was the one who said no, who worked late, who missed recitals and soccer games because someone had to keep the lights on. He was the provider, not the entertainer. And Olivia? She still smiled at him, still said, "I love you," still curled into him some nights. It had to mean something, didn't it? He remembered one night, maybe a year before the anniversary, lying in bed beside her. She was scrolling through her phone, back turned to him. He reached out, slid his arm around her waist. She didn't react. "You okay?" he asked softly. She murmured. "Just tired." He kissed her shoulder. "I love you, Olivia." She didn't say it back, just sighed. He didn't push. He stared at the ceiling for a long time that night, listening to the silent stretch between them. And now, looking back, God, he hated how hard he tried to justify that moment. How many hundreds of little red flags he folded into origami excuses. It wasn't until he stood in that ballroom, champagne glass shaking in his hand, listening to her whisper betrayal into another man's ear, that he realized the truth had always been there. He just chose not to see it. Chapter 3. Cracks in the mirror. The silence in the house was no longer peaceful. It used to be comforting, soft, familiar. The kind of quiet that meant everyone was safe, full, asleep, and loved. Now it wrapped itself around Mark Willis like cold gauze, damp and suffocating. He sat at the edge of their king-sized bed, elbows on his knees, hands hanging loose like a man who'd forgotten what to do with them. The room was dim, lit only by the amber hue of the streetlight outside their window. The anniversary party was barely 12 hours behind him, but it felt like another lifetime. His ears still rang from the words. He still thinks they're his kids. The sound looped endlessly in his head, like a broken record spitting venom. But now came the quieter pain, the remembering, the rewinding. Olivia used to wait up for him, even when he worked those ridiculous 14-hour days, chasing promotions and bonuses. She'd be there. A glass of wine, a tired smile, sometimes a warm plate left in the oven with a note. Eat first, kiss second. Now, most nights she was in bed already, curled up on her side like a comma in silk pajamas, her back always to him. He used to think she was tired. Raising 3 kids was no small feat, he didn't question it. But over the last few years, It wasn't just sleep that came between them. It was the distance, the walls, the invisible barriers that grew taller, thicker, soundproof. He'd reach out for her, physically, emotionally, and it felt like touching glass. She responded, but never initiated. Her kisses were quick, her embraces short, her laughter. More and more, it was reserved for texts and phone calls when she thought he wasn't listening. And when she did speak, it was different. Clipped, dismissive, as if his presence annoyed her. "You working late again tonight?" she once asked, barely looking up from her laptop. "Yeah," he had replied, tugging on his tie. "There's a quarterly review I'm leading. Big one. Sure." She sipped her coffee. Mark blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" She shrugged, eyes still fixed on the screen. "Nothing. Just seems like you're married to that office. More than me these days." The irony now, that she said it with another man's name, saved under Monica in her phone. Back then, he felt guilty, defensive. Maybe I'm working too much. Maybe I did miss that date night. Maybe she's lonely. He tried harder, came home earlier when he could, took her on a surprise weekend trip to Napa, bought her a necklace she never wore. It never changed anything. One evening, he returned early with takeout from her favorite Thai place. The kids were at sleepovers. He imagined the look of surprise on her face. A little wine, a little music. Maybe they'd finally connect like old times. Instead, he walked in to find her curled on the couch, laughing at something on her phone. She didn't hear him at first. "Hey," he said softly. She jumped, quickly locking the screen. "Oh, hey, you're early. I thought we could eat together," he said, lifting the bags. She smiled, but it was a tight, polite smile. The kind you give a coworker, not your husband. "Sure," she said. "I'm just going to finish this message real quick." She never finished it. Dinner was cold by the time they started eating. They spoke about Bill's and Caleb's math grades. That was it. No eye contact. No warmth. Just roommates sharing food. He once brought up counseling. Just floated the idea over breakfast. "I think maybe we've hit a weird patch," he said carefully. "Maybe talking to someone." Her spoon clattered in her bowl. "So now I'm the problem?" "No, I didn't say that. You're the one who's never home. You want therapy? Try being here first." She stood up and walked away, and Mark sat there staring into soggy cereal. After that, he never brought it up again. He remembered nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what was happening. He remembered thinking, maybe I've changed. Maybe I've become boring. He wasn't as lean as he used to be. His jokes weren't as quick. His idea of a fun night was ordering in and falling asleep watching Discovery Channel. Daniel, on the other hand, always had a story, always had energy. He'd show up with a bottle of wine and a smirk, making Olivia laugh so hard she'd cry. Mark had even once joked, "I should hire you to be the house entertainer." Daniel had grinned. "What can I say? Some of us still got it." Mark laughed too back then. But now, that memory made his stomach turn. Was he really so blind? Or just desperate to believe that the cracks weren't really cracks? He rose from the bed and walked to the mirror across the room. Stared at himself. Same face. A little older. Tired eyes. Graying hair at the temples. His jaw still strong. Still intact. But inside, he felt shattered. He pressed his hand to the cool glass. "Was it me?" he whispered. He didn't recognize his own voice. Was it something he said? Something he didn't say? Did he stop complimenting her? Stop touching her the way she wanted? Did he spend too much time behind screens and spreadsheets and not enough looking her in the eyes? He tried to list the moments where things had gone wrong, but they weren't moments. They were slow fades, like erosion, like something slipping through fingers he didn't know were open. Even now, even after hearing her betray him with a smile and a kiss on another man's cheek, his heart fought to make sense of it, to blame himself. Because if he was the problem, at least there was a reason. But deep down, something colder began to bloom. He didn't deserve this. He loved her. He broke himself to provide this life. And she had spit on it. Not just in secret, but with contempt. With mockery. That part hurt more than anything. Not the affair. Not the secrets. But the laughter. Mark turned from the mirror, jaw tight, chest burning. He crossed the room, grabbed his phone from the nightstand, and scrolled past Olivia's name. He paused over it. For half a second, the old him hesitated. Then he kept scrolling, down to a contact labeled simply, Edward, family law. His fingers hovered, then tapped. Chapter 4. Truth in plain sight. Mark didn't sleep that night. He just sat in the dark on the edge of the bed that now felt like a museum exhibit, something people looked at and whispered about, not something anyone really lived in. The blinds were half open. The pale blue of early morning crept through, slicing the room into shadows. The empty space beside him, where Olivia should have been, felt like a sinkhole, swallowing everything. He stared at his phone, the contact list still open to Edward, family law. He hadn't pressed send. Not yet. Not because he wasn't sure, but because some small, desperate, dying part of him needed answers first. Needed truth. Hard, undeniable, blood-on-the-floor truth. Not whispers. Not suspicions. He needed the why, the how long, and maybe even the how dare you. He moved like a ghost through the house, barefoot, silent. The living room still bore the remnants of the party, deflated balloons, an abandoned gift bag, a half-full wine glass on the mantel. Like the past 21 years had thrown up in one room. He sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and began the descent. First, email. He logged into the family account Olivia rarely used, an old Gmail they once set up together. She had moved everything to her private Outlook years ago, but Mark had always retained access to this one. Forgotten, dusty, full of expired coupons and spam. Except, not all of it. He dug deeper. Found archived flight confirmations to Las Vegas, Napa, Austin. All marked girls' weekend in her calendar. But none of the usual friends were CC'd. Then came a receipt. A restaurant reservation in Chicago, table for two. Anniversary special package. The date? March 19th. Their anniversary. But he had been out of town that day, closing a deal in Atlanta. The name on the bill? Daniel Reed. Mark blinked hard. His heart thumped like a war drum. He moved on to the phone records next. Their family plan still included Olivia's number. He pulled up the call logs. Daniel's number showed up every single day. Morning, afternoon, midnight. Hundreds of messages. Sometimes 30 or 40 in a single day. Then the photos. Olivia had a habit of syncing her phone with the cloud. Years ago, she asked Mark to do it just in case I lose anything. And she'd never disable the backup. He dug into the archive, scrolling past photos of birthdays, school events, selfies. Then there it was. A blurry image at first, taken in a hotel mirror. Daniel behind her, shirtless, kissing her shoulder. Mark's stomach twisted violently. Another photo, her in a sundress, legs draped over Daniel's lap at what looked like a lakeside cabin. She captioned it, "My real happy place." Red heart, another, dozens. Holidays, weekends, even photos from their home. Daniel on the porch with a beer, while Olivia leaned into him, her hand resting on his chest. All time-stamped, all taken while Mark had been at work, or traveling, or otherwise out earning the money that paid for the roof they were screwing under. He could feel the rage rise now, hot, primal, uncontrollable. His vision narrowed, tunneling into the glowing screen. How long? How far back does this go? He remembered the photos on the wall in the hallway. Olivia holding baby Sophie. Mark smiling like a fool. Daniel standing just behind them. Always there, always in the background. He clicked into Grace's birth certificate. Then Caleb's. No listed father's DNA. Just names. A thought, one so foul he nearly choked on it, slithered into his head. He dug into old medical files. Insurance records. Hospital visits. Blood type charts. Sophie. Mark. Oh, Olivia. Hey. He sat back, blinking. No, that couldn't be right. He double-checked. Science didn't lie. He checked Grace's records. Same issue. Only Caleb's matched. Mark was hyperventilating now, gripping the desk like it might collapse under him. His vision blurred at the edges. He wasn't just betrayed. He'd been played. 15 years. At least. That was what the oldest file with Daniel's name on it said. A shared hotel booking in 2010. But the signs had been there even before. 15 years. He spiraled. Images, voices, memories, every smile, every I love you, every Father's Day card drawn by kids who may not be his, spun through his mind like shrapnel. The girls calling Daniel Uncle D. The way Olivia once joked, "If I ever ran off, You know who I go to? He had laughed. He laughed at that. Now he felt sick. He closed the laptop. The house was still dark, still cold. He stood in front of the fireplace mantel, staring at a framed photo of the whole family at Disney World. It was supposed to be the happiest trip of their lives. Mark had saved for 2 years. Olivia wore Mickey ears. The kids beamed. And there was Daniel in the background of one of the shots. Sunglasses, arm casually around Olivia's waist. Mark grabbed the frame and hurled it across the room. Glass shattered against the wall. The sound was sharp. Final. He collapsed onto the couch, trembling. His thoughts were no longer rational. They were boiling, fractured, broken. Had they laughed about him? Mocked his love behind closed doors? Called him names? Loser dad, as Sophie said. He clenched his fists. He wasn't just humiliated. He was destroyed. And they had done it with full awareness. Every holiday, he spent away to afford their lives. Every hour of overtime. Every time he chose his family over himself. It had been for them, and they'd spit on it. At some point, dawn broke. Pale light spilled over the carpet, highlighting the chaos around him. Mark moved like he was walking underwater. He returned to his desk, sat down again, picked up the phone. He opened his call log, found Edward's name, pressed it, held it to his ear. The dial tone rang once, twice. A voice answered. Edward Russell, Family Law. Chapter 5. Burn all down. By the time Mark ended the call with Edward Russell, his voice was a hollow version of itself, steady, cold, dangerous. The numbness from the night before had calcified into something sharper. Not pain, not confusion, something worse. Purpose. He didn't cry. Not anymore. That stage was over. Now it was time to destroy the version of himself that had allowed this lie to survive for 15 years. And if Olivia wanted to build a new life with Daniel, then she could do it with ashes. Mark started with the bank accounts. The house was still quiet. Olivia had taken the girls out of town for a long weekend with her sister. Caleb was at a school friend's for a sleepover. It was just him and the lies left behind. He sat at the kitchen counter, laptop open, coffee untouched. The cursor blinked in front of the joint checking account. He logged in. $48,923.21. Without hesitation, he moved every cent to his private account. Then the joint savings. $72,350.85. He transferred it, locked the account. The trust account for the kids' college? Technically under his name alone. He liquidated it all. He'd planned for years to help them graduate debt-free. But now, 2 of them weren't even his. And the third, the only one who might be, never once called him dad unless he needed money. Mark closed the laptop, heart pounding like a war drum. The kitchen clock ticked behind him, indifferent to the rage that had overtaken the room. Next came the documents. He opened the fireproof safe in the master bedroom closet. Wills, insurance policies, titles, social security cards, passports. He flipped open the family will. He had spent hours drafting it with Olivia 2 years ago. Everything was divided evenly. Each child listed. Daniel named as alternate executor in case anything happened to Mark. He barked a bitter laugh. He tore the will in half, then quarters, then fed it into the fireplace, watching the edges curl black. Then he opened a fresh folder and wrote a new one. Alone, Caleb was left a small trust, just enough to set him on his feet if a DNA test ever confirmed what Mark already suspected. The rest? Gone. Locked into a new investment account under a different name. Olivia wouldn't see a penny. By afternoon, Mark was methodical. He called the real estate agent he trusted most and told him to start listing the lake house. The one they bought together as a forever family retreat. It had been Daniel's idea, of course. A place for memories, he said. Mark would rather burn it to the ground. He emailed his accountant and moved all stock holdings to an offshore account in the Caymans, one Olivia didn't even know existed. He filed paperwork to remove Olivia as beneficiary from his life insurance policy. Mark replaced her name with to be assigned. It took just under 6 hours to erase her from every future plan, every backup, every safety net. And it felt good. God, it felt good. By 5:30 p.m., he opened a blank sheet of paper. He stared at it for a long time, tapping the pen against the counter. What do you write to a woman who spent half your life lying in your bed, pretending you were the love of hers? What do you say to a best friend who raised your children as his joke? Finally, he began. Olivia, I know everything. Don't bother calling. Don't bother lying. The photos, the texts, the receipts, the birth certificates. 15 years. I can't decide what's worse, what you did, or how easily you smiled in my face while doing it. I worked myself into the ground for you. For them. And you, both of you, mock me like I was some pathetic, clueless joke. He still thinks they're his kids. I'll hear that line in my head every day for the rest of my life. But that ends tonight. You don't get another word from me. No screams. No closure. No chance to spin it. I've taken the money, the assets, the accounts. Everything I built, you're out of it. The kids have been removed from the will. Daniel won't see a dollar. If you want a life together, you can build it from scratch, just like I did. Except you won't have me funding it this time. Goodbye, Olivia. You never deserved the man you destroyed. Mark, he folded it, slid it into an envelope, and placed it on the dresser under her favorite necklace, the one he bought for their 10th anniversary. The diamonds looked dull now. Hollow, like her eyes. Nightfall crept in. Mar packed lightly, just the essentials. A duffel bag, his laptop, a lockbox with documents, a burner phone. He stood in the doorway of his own bedroom for a long time. The room where he once made love to the woman he'd given everything to. The room where she'd probably whispered another man's name while he slept beside her. He stared at the mirror again. His reflection looked older now. Harder. Not a victim anymore. A man reborn. Mark flicked off the light, walked down the stairs. He paused at the family photo by the front door. The one with Olivia in white, the kids all young, everyone smiling. He didn't bother smashing it. He just took it off the wall, walked it to the trash, and dropped it in without a word. The engine of his SUV rumbled to life. He pulled out of the driveway, slow and deliberate. No rush, no drama, just silence. He didn't look back. No calls, no texts, no tearful goodbyes. He was gone before they even knew he was leaving. Chapter 6. Ashes and Echoes, the Aftermath. The house that once echoed with laughter now creaked with silence. Olivia sat at the edge of the living room couch, wrinkled pajamas, a chipped coffee mug in her hand, and makeup from the night before smudged under tired eyes. A morning show murmured in the background, but she wasn't listening. She hadn't listened to much lately. 3 years. 3 years since Mark disappeared like smoke. No calls, no letters, no closure. Just that single brutal note and a financial bloodletting that gutted everything she once took for granted. She had cried at first, then raged, then played the victim. I was lost. He was never around. Daniel understood me, but the world didn't buy it. Her parents were mortified. Her sister called her a damn disgrace. Friends stopped inviting her out. And the kids? They had turned into shadows of themselves. Sophie dropped out of college after a breakdown. Grace became bitter, moving out at 18 and cutting contact. Caleb rarely spoke, except when he muttered, "I miss Dad," under his breath and made her cry. She once blamed Mark for abandoning them. Now, she was starting to understand that maybe, just maybe, she deserved it. And Daniel? Daniel Reed, once the ever-charming best friend, was now jobless, drunk half the time, and almost unrecognizable from the man who used to smirk beside her at dinner parties. They tried to make it work. At first, they moved in together, shared groceries, made shallow attempts at romance. But without Mark's money, the cracks turned into canyons. Daniel had always been the fun one, the uncle. He had never carried the weight. Now that he had to, he crumbled. They fought constantly about bills, about the kids, about what they lost. "You ruined your family," he hissed once, slamming a cabinet. "Don't look at me like I'm the villain. You were married, not me." She'd slapped him. He never came back after that. The irony didn't escape her. She lost her husband, her family, her dignity, all for a man who ran when things got hard. Meanwhile, nearly 1,200 miles away, the crisp mountain air kissed the windows of a secluded cabin nestled in the Rockies. Mark, now going by the name Evan Wells, poured a cup of black coffee as the sun rose behind the pine trees. The smell of fresh pine and burnt cedar filled the wooden space around him. He stood shirtless by the window, leaner than he'd ever been. The man staring back at him from the reflection had scars, not on his skin, but in his eyes. Sharp, watchful, distant. The mornings were quiet here. Too quiet, some might say. But Mark had grown to appreciate the silence. It didn't judge. It didn't lie. It didn't whisper behind his back. He walked to the desk in the corner of the room, where two monitors glowed faintly. He still worked freelance consulting now. Cybersecurity contracts. No fixed address. No ties. He made more money in silence than he ever had in chaos. The old Mark would have been proud. But the new one? He didn't think much about pride anymore. His phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. Estate audit finished. No contact from Olivia. Caleb turned 17 last week. Still no request for a paternity test. Mark stared at it for a long moment, thumb hovering over the screen. He thought of Caleb often, the boy who used to sit on his lap and ask about the stars, who clung to his hand at school drop-offs, who built Lego sets in the garage while Mark fixed the lawnmower. He wanted to believe Caleb was his. But that belief was poisoned by 15 years of lies. He set the phone down and walked outside instead. The wind was cool. Pine needles crunched beneath his boots. Birds chirped in the distance. He breathed in slowly. Back in town, Olivia tried selling the house twice, but the market was cruel, just like karma. No one wanted a place with that much baggage. It sat on Zillow like a rotting memory, taunting her with every unscheduled showing and every deal that fell through. Her job barely paid enough. She worked at a local insurance office, filing claims and pretending not to hear the whispers in the break room. Isn't she the one whose husband vanished? She cheated with his best friend, right? I heard he took everything and left her with debt. They weren't wrong. One night, Olivia stood in the hallway, staring at an old photo on the wall, one she hadn't had the heart to take down. Mark stood in the middle, arms around all three kids. Caleb on his shoulders, Grace making a face, Sophie with a full smile, and her, leaning in close to him, laughing. A frozen lie. She reached up and touched the glass, trembling fingers brushing the frame. I didn't mean to lose you, she whispered, voice cracking. But the photo said nothing. At the cabin, Mark sat by the fire, a notebook in his lap. He didn't write often, but some nights. He needed to bleed without bleeding. They say time heals all wounds. But that's a lie the unbroken tell the broken. Time doesn't heal. It just teaches you how to walk with a limp. He closed the book. He didn't date. He didn't trust. And he didn't let people in. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But he was alive. Stronger. Sharper. Free. And freedom, he learned, was worth every ounce of pain it took to earn it. He didn't miss Olivia. Not the real one. The one behind the smiles, the lies, the betrayal. But he missed the idea of her. The version he thought he married. The partner he built his life around. The woman who only ever existed in his head. And that version? That ghost? He had finally laid her to rest. Chapter 7. A letter from the past. It came on a Tuesday, ordinary as any other. Mark had just come back from a trail hike, his boots muddy, a sheen of sweat clinging to his back as he stepped into the cabin and dropped the keys onto the old pine counter. The scent of rain still lingered in the air outside, the forest behind him humming with the low crackle of thunder. He wasn't expecting mail. No one ever sent him anything. But there it was, a plain white envelope tucked between the latest internet bill and a catalog he never ordered. No return address. No stamp, hand-delivered, maybe. He froze as he saw the handwriting on the front. His name. His real name. Mark Willis. Not Evan Wells, the name he'd been using for 3 years. Not the ghost he'd become. The name hit him in the chest like a sledgehammer. He stared at the ink for what felt like an eternity before finally tearing it open. Inside was a single page, thick paper, written in a familiar script, slanted, confident, imperfect. Dad, I don't know if this will reach you. I don't even know if you'll read it. But I had to try. I know I don't deserve your time. I know I was cruel. I know I said things I didn't understand. But I was 17. I was stupid, and I believed what Mom told me because I didn't know better. I didn't want to believe you would just disappear unless you were the one wrong. I've since learned the truth. All of it. I know what you did. I know what Uncle Daniel did. I know what we did, how we laughed behind your back, how we took you for granted, How he made you feel like a stranger in your own home. I think about that every day. I moved out a year ago. Haven't spoken to Mom in months. She still tries to make herself the victim. Still blames you for everything. But I don't buy it anymore. I see her now. Clearly. For the first time. I'm writing you because I miss you. Because I'm sorry. Because I'm not that selfish teenager anymore. And because I need to know, was any of it real to you? Was I, ever enough? If you never write back, I'll understand. But if you're reading this, please know I love you. Grace Mark read the letter once. Then again. Then a third time. Each word cutting deeper than the last. He folded it slowly and set it on the table like it was made of glass. And then he just sat there for over an hour. The sun dipped below the trees outside, but he didn't move. The cabin dimmed into gold and then gray. His coffee sat untouched beside him. His hands, calloused and steady, now trembled faintly. His mind was loud. Too loud. I miss you. Were we ever enough? Please know I love you. The words spiraled around in his head like a storm he couldn't step out of. He stood up suddenly, paced the cabin. One lap, then another. Then he grabbed the firewood axe from the wall and stormed outside. He needed to move, to sweat, to do something. He set a log onto the stump and swung. Hard. Again. Chop. Crack. Would split like ribs. Each swing a word he couldn't say. A memory he didn't want. A moment he couldn't take back. He remembered Grace as a little girl, curled beside him on the couch watching old Disney movies. He remembered her squealing when he taught her to ride a bike. The way she used to draw best dad ever signs for Father's Day. The late-night talks when she cried over her first heartbreak, and only he could comfort her. And then her voice from that night. That night. Yeah, Uncle Daniel is way more fun than our loser dad anyway. The log cracked again, splinters flying into the dirt. He fell to his knees. The axe clattered beside him. And for the first time in years, he let himself cry. Not rage, not grief, just pure, hollow heartbreak. He hadn't cried when he found the messages, or when he confirmed the timeline of betrayal. Not even when the paternity results came in. But now a simple letter from his daughter broke him in half. Because he wanted to believe her, needed to believe her. But how do you trust again, after your heart's been gutted? Later that night, he sat at the table with the letter again, a glass of scotch in hand. He lit a fire in the hearth, letting the flames fill the room with warmth he couldn't feel. He stared at the paper like it held the answer to everything. Should he write back? Call? Ignore it? He picked up a pen, then set it down, then picked it up again. What would he even say? I missed you too. You broke me. I'm proud of you. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. None of it felt right. None of it felt enough. He poured another drink. The night stretched on, long and quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest. The kind that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. He looked out the window at the vast expanse of trees and darkness. He had built this life to escape the pain. But pain, it seemed, had a forwarding address. He folded the letter again, carefully, reverently, slid it back into the envelope. He didn't burn it, didn't throw it away. He set on the mantel above the fireplace, just under a small framed photo, a rare one he didn't destroy when he vanished. It was from when Grace was 10, her arms around his neck, both of them smiling. No lies, no Daniel, just that moment. He stared at the picture for a long time. A storm brewed behind his eyes again, but he didn't cry this time. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Mark leaned back in the chair, hands resting on the armrest, jaw tight. He hadn't made a decision, but for the first time in 3 years, he wanted to, even if he didn't know how. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The air was thick with silence. Mark sat alone at the back of the quiet Italian bistro he had reserved under a fake name, Jason Wells. He had arrived early. He always did. It was something Olivia used to mock him for. You always act like the world's about to collapse if we're late, she once said. Now, after everything, he realized, maybe the world had. He didn't touch the wine in front of him. He wasn't here to drink. He was here to finally say it, all of it. Across the candlelit table, 3 empty chairs waited like ghosts. His children, the only people he had ever truly lived for. Then the door opened. They entered together. Sophie walked in first, as poised and put together as ever. Designer coat, carefully styled hair, a defensive look already etched into her face. Caleb followed, taller than he'd remembered, but thinner, his hoodie too large for his frame. And Grace looked exactly how she sounded in the letter. Tired, nervous, brave. They stopped a few feet from the table, unsure. Mark stood. You're here. Thank you. Let's just get this over with, Sophie said flatly, sliding into the seat across from him. Grace took the chair beside her, eyes scanning his face like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to smile. Caleb sat down last, shoulders hunched, gaze fixed on the table. Mark studied them for a long, quiet moment. His heart didn't race. No tears burned at the corners of his eyes. Just a strange, hollow calm. Saturday, I asked you here tonight, he began, because there are things you need to know. Truths no one else will tell you. Sophie crossed her arms. You couldn't have sent an email? No, he replied coolly. Because I wanted to see your eyes when I told you. I wanted to know if even a fraction of what I say lands somewhere deeper than your skin. Grace winced at his tone. Caleb stayed silent. Mark took a deep breath. I was married to your mother for over 20 years. I built a life around her. Around you. I worked late. Took on debts. Missed birthdays, vacations, because I believed that I was doing it for the people I loved. That would matter. No one said anything. I trusted Daniel. I trusted him like a brother. He was there when you were born, Sophie. He babysat all of you. He sat at my table, drank my beer, played the hero in your eyes while I became the background noise. His voice never rose, but it carried weight now, dense and bitter. While I broke my back for you all, your mother and Daniel, slept in my bed, mocked me, lied. They were together for 15 years. 15. Grace gasped softly. Caleb's eyes lifted, searching his face. Sophie scoffed. You don't know that. I have phone records. Photos. DNA tests, Mark said flatly. I know everything, including the fact that only one of you is biologically mine. The table turned to ice. Grace's face crumpled into shock. Sophie sat straighter, her voice sharp. You came here just to hurt us? No, he said simply. I came here because you deserve to know the truth. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not here to get even. I'm here to give you what your mother never would. Grace's lips quivered. I didn't know. I swear to God, Dad, I didn't know. Mark turned to her. I believe you, Grace. Your letter. It meant something. It still does. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Sophie wasn't moved. And what? Now you want to be our dad again? After 3 years of silence. No, he said. I'm not coming back. That silenced them all. I built a new life. Quiet. Far away. And honestly, peaceful. But before I disappeared for good, you deserve to hear this from me. He leaned forward slightly. I loved you. Every one of you. I was there, every recital, every scraped knee, every birthday cake. I poured everything I had into you. Even when you laughed behind my back. Even when you called another man cooler, funnier, better. I still loved you. His voice cracked for the first time, just slightly. Not because of biology, but because you were mine. And I was proud of that. Until the world flipped upside down. Caleb finally spoke. Am I the one? He asked, his voice barely audible. Mark's expression softened, but he didn't answer directly. You are my son. That's what matters. Don't let blood take that from you. Caleb's eyes welled up. He nodded, blinking fast. Sophie looked away, jaw clenched. So that's it? You just burn the bridge and vanish. Mark stood slowly. I'm not asking for you to understand, but I'm also not going to lie to you. He reached into his coat and pulled out 3 envelopes. Handwritten names on each. He placed them on the table. These are letters. Personal. For each of you. Read them when you're ready. Grace reached for hers first. Cradled it like it might disappear. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was a stupid kid. I know, Mark said gently. And I never stopped loving you. Sophie didn't touch hers. Mark turned toward the exit. He hesitated at the doorway, his hand resting on the frame. He didn't look back, didn't break. But his voice rang out one last time, cold and calm. I'm not coming back. But you needed to hear the truth. Chapter 9. The Reckoning. The email came on a gray Tuesday morning. Mark had just finished his morning run through the pine-scented trails near his cabin when his phone buzzed. It was a short, automated notice from a legal database he subscribed to under his new identity. Daniel Reed, sentenced to 5 years. Wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. Mark didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply stared at the headline for a full minute before powering the phone off and setting it face down on the wooden counter beside his coffee. He should have felt something, triumph, closure. But all he felt was tired. 3 days later, a text from Grace broke another piece of news. Mom's working at a strip mall boutique. She lost everything. I think. She's living in someone's garage. Mark didn't reply, but something in him shifted. A quiet, stubborn part that had gone silent over the years stirred again. It wasn't vengeance he sought. It was the truth, unfiltered, eye to eye. The store was tucked between a vape shop and a discount nail salon, its window display cluttered with dusty mannequins in last season's clothes. A worn-out clearance, 70% off. Sign fluttered in the breeze. Mark stepped inside. A bell jingled. The lighting was harsh, fluorescent. The air smelled like cheap plastic hangers and desperation. And there she was, Olivia. She stood behind the counter, wearing a name tag that said Elaine, an alias or perhaps a desperate reinvention. Her once golden hair was faded and pulled into a loose ponytail. Fine lines creased her face. Her blouse was wrinkled. Her eyes, those same eyes he used to dream of, looked sunken, exhausted. She looked up from folding a pair of jeans and froze. Her mouth opened slightly. Mark? He didn't answer right away. He stepped forward slowly, letting his presence fill the space. Hello, Olivia. The air between them thickened, heavy with unspoken history. She blinked quickly, trying to gather herself. I didn't know you were back in town. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. You weren't supposed to, he said. But here I am. She reached for a water bottle with shaking hands. Did the kids tell you? I didn't come because of them. Then, what? He looked at her for a long, loaded second. Because I wanted to see for myself what you turned all of it into. Olivia's face flushed. If you came here to gloat, I didn't, Mark said coldly. I don't need to gloat, Olivia. You did this to yourself. She laughed bitterly, arms folding tightly. Is that what you think? That I just did this? You have no idea what it was like being with you. You were always gone, always tired. Everything was about work, bills, routine. I was dying in that house. Mark's jaw clenched. Then leave. You had 100 chances to leave. But instead you lied. You betrayed. You watched me build everything you live in, every goddamn thing, and tore it down behind my back. I didn't mean to fall in love with him. She snapped. He stepped closer. Don't insult us both. You weren't in love. You were comfortable. You had 2 men devoting themselves to you while you lived like a queen. One doing the dirty work, the other stroking your ego. Tears welled in her eyes. You think I didn't suffer? Daniel turned out to be a parasite. He's in jail, Mark. He stole from me too. I'm working minimum wage just to survive. And yet somehow, he said quietly, I'm supposed to care. Her face twisted. You don't understand. You don't want to. Everything got so twisted. The girls, don't bring them into this, Mark said sharply. I already told them the truth. Olivia staggered back a step. You told them every detail. Why, she cried. Why would you ruin them like that? They deserve to know who their mother is, he said, voice like stone. I didn't ruin them. You did. She turned away, wiping her face with trembling hands. I never wanted it to end like this. He stared at her back for a long time. You know, he said slowly, there were nights I used to look at you sleeping beside me and think, God, I'm lucky. She chose me. She still chooses me. Her shoulders shook. I thought I was the boring husband, the safe bet. I thought if I worked harder, did more, stayed patient someday, you'd light up when I walked in a room again. She turned around, tears streaking her cheeks. Mark, I did love you. He looked her dead in the eyes. No, you didn't. She flinched. If you had, you would have respected me. You would have told the truth. You would have ended it clean. But instead, you broke a man who built your entire world. He stepped back toward the exit. Her voice cracked. Please, just tell me you forgive me. He turned halfway, pausing. All you ever had to do, he said, low and final, was be honest. Then he walked away, for good. Chapter 10. Walking on my terms. The cabin was quiet. A silence so thick it felt almost sacred. Mark sat back in his worn leather chair by the stone hearth, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows across the wooden walls. Outside, the Rockies loomed tall, indifferent, eternal. For the first time in years, he felt no weight pressing on his chest. No bitterness, no anger, no regrets, just freedom. His phone buzzed softly on the table beside him. A message from Grace. "Hey, Dad. Hope you're okay. Miss you." Mark smiled faintly, thumb hovering over the screen before typing back. "I'm okay. You?" "Getting there. Slowly." He didn't need more than that. Grace's occasional texts were like small lifelines, fragile, tentative, but real. The slow healing between them was fragile, but it was happening. Another buzz. This time Caleb. "Had a good day at school. Finished my science project. Wish you could have seen it." Mark's heart clenched. "I'd love to see it next time I visit." No reply yet, but Mark didn't mind. He wasn't rushing anything. Sophie? No message. Her silence was a heavier kind of presence. Mark had learned to accept that some wounds take longer to heal, or maybe never healed at all. He didn't wait for her approval anymore. He didn't need it. He glanced around the cabin, eyes resting on the few remaining mementos of the life he'd left behind. A faded baseball cap Grace had once given him. A cracked photo frame holding a picture of Sophie blowing out birthday candles. And then, tucked away on the mantel, a framed photograph of the entire family from happier days. They were smiling. Fake smiles, maybe, but smiles nonetheless. Mark reached up slowly and took the photo down. He cradled it in his hands, feeling the glass cold against his skin. Memories rushed back. The laughter, the lies, the whispered betrayals, the broken promises, and the moment it all shattered. He stood and moved toward the fireplace, the photograph held carefully like something fragile and precious. Outside, the wind howled softly through the pines, as if echoing his decision. Mark dropped the photo into the fire. The flames hungrily licked at the edges, and the glass cracked. He watched as the paper curled and blackened. A small cloud of smoke spiraled up, twisting and twisting until it vanished into the chimney. He closed his eyes, breathing deep, a strange calm settling over him like a balm. He thought about the years lost, the wounds opened and closed, about Olivia and Daniel, their greed and deceit, about the children who still carried pieces of the past, some ready to rebuild, some retreating into silence, and about himself, the man who had once defined himself by a family that wasn't truly his, who had once sought validation through loyalty and sacrifice, who had finally, painfully, learned that sometimes the greatest peace comes not from forgiving, but from finally choosing yourself. Mark opened his eyes and looked around the cabin again. He wasn't alone. Not really. There was a future here, quiet, uncertain, but his. A future on his terms. He sat back down in the chair by the fire and reached for his journal. With steady hands, he began to write. "I am no longer the man they tried to break. I am not the ghost of their betrayal. I am whole, even if scarred. And from this day forward, I will walk on my own terms." The pen lifted from the page. He closed the journal. Leaning back, he allowed the warmth of the fire and the peace within to wash over him. Outside, the mountain stood tall and silent, guarding his secret. And inside, Mark Willis, once lost, now found, smiled softly. He was finally free. Sometimes the greatest peace comes not from forgiving, but from finally choosing yourself.